Amen. Good morning again. Welcome again. Thanks for being at church. I'm excited to talk to you this morning. Have been in a 2-week series, or we're actually in a 4-week series called What's Next? And just taking you through the steps. And the goal has been really just providing you step by step, turn by turn directions for a relationship with Jesus Christ and what that looks like. And so a couple weeks ago we talked about just believing. That's the first step, that you have to get to the place where you believe that Jesus was a real person, that he walked on the face of the earth, that he was crucified by the Romans, and more importantly, you have to believe that he actually rose from the dead. And that's what separates us as Christians or believers. So if you're here this morning and you're maybe it's your first time to church, or maybe you haven't been to church in a long time, or maybe you're just wrestling with that decision. I know that we're all different points on this journey. Some of us are still trying to figure out if we really believe that, if we can get our head wrapped around that. Some of us don't really understand the ins and outs of what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. Some of you this morning have been a follower of Jesus Christ for a long time. That means you guys are really old. No, just kidding. But some of you are here, and some of you have tried it. You know, you've tried. Maybe some are here that have tried being a follower of Jesus Christ, and you failed, and you've had maybe a horrible experience, or you've had a situation where maybe you came to church and you experienced Christian people, and you found out that some Christian people aren't always followers of Jesus Christ. And so that's what we really have been talking about in this series, is what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus Christ, and how do we get to that point? So last week as Jeremy mentioned, we talked about moving from believing, it's the first step, and then last week we talked about just what it means to actually follow, to actually have a roadmap, to know what's next, and to know what the next turn is. And so that's what we've been really trying to help us walk through and really kind of break that down and talk about what it means to have the next step. And we move from the next step. Obviously, the first step is when you move from believers to actually followers, when you actually start being obedient and you start actually going in the direction that Jesus wants you to go and start walking in that direction. So this morning, I just have a question for you. Have you ever had a really awkward either conversation or encounter or relationship with anybody? Just a really awkward conversation or encounter. Anybody ever have that happen? Yeah, okay. I remember when I was a kid, for some reason or another, because I was a weird kid probably. Grew up the same way, but I was a weird kid, and when I was a kid, for some reason or another, when my dad would sit down next to me or whatever, and he would wear T-shirts sometimes, and this is just weird. I don't know why I would do this, but I would just roll up his sleeve on one of his arms of his shirt and just whack, because that's what you do to dads, right? I would just smack him on the arm for no reason. And so I would do that all the time. Like every time he would be close enough to get that done, I would pull up his sleeve and just smack him on the arm. And I don't know why I would do that, but one time I went to the grocery store, and we were in there, and I saw him come around the corner, and I ran up and pulled up his shirt and just smacked him a good one. And then I looked up, and wasn't Dad. And so this is this really weird, awkward, hey, what's up? And I don't know what the guy had to think. There's this little kid, he just ran up, pulled my shirt sleeve up, and smacked me on the arm. And I don't know what he thought, but I just looked up, and I just bolted. I just off through the frozen pea section I went. But, I think, honestly, if we're honest, we have these awkward situations and relationships sometimes that come up in our life. And honestly, if we're honest, if you're really honest, our relationship with God sometimes is like that. We're focused on an individual relationship with God, and if we're honest, it can feel really awkward at times, especially when you're just trying to figure out what that means. Because you hear Christian people talk in Christian language, and they say, well, this is what it means to have a relationship. And you're thinking, well, I don't even know how that works. That just seems really awkward to me. How do you have a relationship with somebody that you can't see and you can't touch and that doesn't talk back audibly and you can't feel, it just seems really awkward at times. And we all have our own image or picture of God. And he, and especially when you think about, okay, if he's God, he's aware of everything I do and how stressful, is he aware of that? Is he aware of how stressful my life is? Is he aware that I have bills due? Is he aware that I've done all these bad things? Is he expecting me to clean up my mess before he is willing to have a relationship with me? Is he mad at me? Or even worse, is he disappointed? There was nothing worse than my mom, are you mad, Mom? No, I'm just disappointed. Well, thanks a lot. Feel terrible about myself, right? Moms have a way of doing that. Do you guys go to some class or something? Do they pull you in when you have children and say, okay, here's the disappointment thing. It's like I felt horrible about myself. But and so I don't know what your relationship is like with God or what it's like with a guy named Jesus. But in Luke chapter 15, Jesus tells 3 stories, and he gives us a picture of what God is like. And if you just go home and read it sometime, I'm not going to take the time to read through the entire 15th chapter of Luke. But Luke tells us in chapter 15 about what God is like, and Jesus, he actually records 3 stories that Jesus told, and the 3 stories are the story of the lost sheep, and if you're familiar with that, it's basically the shepherd had 100 sheep, he had 99, and then he lost one of them, and so he leaves the 99 to find the one lost sheep. And then Jesus tells a story about a lost coin and a woman, how she had lost this coin and turned over her house looking for this lost coin. And then maybe the most famous story that Jesus told, which is my personal favorite, is the story of the prodigal son, where you have this son who was given this inheritance and then he squandered it, and then he came home and the father met him. And I think through those stories, we get this picture, we get this image of who Jesus is and who God is, really, and what he thinks of us. Because he doesn't just look down on us from afar, that he knows us intimately, and when we're lost, he drops everything. He leaves the 99 and really finds the one. Now, honestly, we should be doing the same thing for lost people, but people often resist God in the gospel, and you wonder why that is, because, and really it comes down to very simply trust. And the most powerful relationship dynamic ever is trust. That is the most powerful dynamic in the world of relationship, is trust. And so when we dig into what we've been talking about in this what's next, and we talk about, so far we've been talking about just what our relationship with God looks like. It's just us and him. It's this horizontal relationship with. And so what I want to do is I want to switch gears a little bit, and I think that there are 2 things that are absolutely critical. If you're here this morning and you are serious, and I don't care if this is your first Sunday or if you've been here 100 years. If you've been in church and you have sat through church services all of your life, I think that there are 2 critical components that will drive you deeper in your relationship with Jesus Christ. And I would say that they are so critical that I think without it, you will never grow. Without these 2 things, you will never experience the kind of growth in your relationship that maybe you're wanting or you're experiencing. And those 2 things are really community, who we are in our inner circle, and then serving others. Those are the 2 things that I think are absolutely critical for your growth as a follower of Jesus Christ. So today I want to move from just talking about our relationship with him and talk about what it means to have relationship with each other, with us. And so there's a lot of things that I can cover, but the first thing that I want to tell you about really this morning, the first step. I just want to back up a little bit, because a couple weeks ago, I know that you all know that I'm a farmer. And Iced Tea Farms, I mentioned, has fallen on some hard times, like a lot of farmers this year. And no Travis, he knows. He never comes sees me though with my farm. Iced Tea Farms has had some challenges this year, and so I have a picture. I think I have a picture. That's Ricky. That's Ricky. He is, and here's the thing. Ricky is supposed to protect my flock, but he's not good at it. And so we've had some more tragedy on Iced Tea Farm this week, and now Ricky has effectively lost every single one of his hens. Every one of them. Possum got the other 3 this week. So it's been a hard time at ICT Farm. So now, Ricky is all alone, and he's not happy about it. And he runs around the yard. I let him out. He crows all the time, but he's just by himself. He's just all by himself. It's really kind of sad because I think he's looking for the other ladies, and they're gone. Went to be with Jesus, hallelujah. But Ricky is just all by himself. And you know, he chases my kids around the yard. They're scared of him, but he's just misunderstood. That's all. They don't understand him. And the fact that the long and short of is he just wants a friend. And I'm his only friend. Because nobody else wants to talk to him. But here's the thing. God has created, so my first point this morning is, here it is. You ready? We is better than me. We is always better than just me. God has created each and every one of you here this morning with an inherent need to be with and live with and do community with other people. He noticed this. You see this from the very beginning of time. And God noticed this when he created Adam. Genesis 2:18 says this. The Lord said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." God looked down at this creation when he created Adam. And he just created Adam. He didn't leave him like that. Because he looked and he said, hey, it's not good for you to be alone. God recognized this from the very beginning. And from the very beginning, God has created an inherent need in each one of you, whether you think so or not. For him, for other people, we are all relational beings. Our relationships become the real world setting in which we practice. Now pay attention to this. This is really important. Our relationships, the relationships that you have with your family, the relationships that you have with people sitting beside you today, in front of you, behind you, people you work with, people all over, all of the relationships, if you think about the relationships you have in your life currently, every single one of those become the real world setting where we practice love that produces a relationship with God. It's the real world setting where we practice the love that a relationship with God produces. When you have a relationship with God, it should produce a relational impact with other people. He uses other people to grow us, and he uses us to grow other people. We are relational. We were not meant to be alone. He did not create us to do life alone. He uses other people to grow us, and he uses us to grow other people. Now, if you do any research on the World Wide Web, and you Google this topic of community, you will find all kinds of articles and studies that have been done throughout the years on the importance and the psychology of community in your life. I found a bunch. I want to read what this one says that I found this week. The first part of the article said this: friendship is a lot like food. We need it to survive. What is more, we seem to have a basic drive for it. Psychologists find that human beings have a fundamental need for inclusion in group life and for close relationships. We are truly social animals. Ricky is a social animal. Even down from the creation of a chicken. God, he's a social animal. He needs other people in his life. He needs other chickens. You need other chickens. We need other people in our life. And later in that same article, it says this: in other words, we are built for social contact. Now, this is really important. I found this interesting. There are serious, life-threatening consequences when we don't get enough. Isn't that interesting? We can't stay on track mentally, and we are compromised physically. Social skills are crucial for your health. when I read that in that article, I think so many of us just sit here and think, well, I don't really need that. I don't want to get engaged. You need it. Anybody watch the show Alone? Anybody ever watch that? Does anybody? Just me? There's a show called Alone. Basically, they take 10 people and they put them out on, I think I've talked about this before. They just stick them in some remote part of the world. They give them some supplies, and then basically it's just a contest to see who outlasts the other. Like who can live out there all by themselves with no human contact and just with the supplies they have, and they can live off the land. It's kind of an interesting show. And then they tap out, and the winner gets $500,000. Crazy, right? So I've been watching it, and it's down to 4 people. Like, if you watch the show, it's interesting. But what I find really, really interesting is there's a guy that killed a moose with a recurve bow. They built these incredible shelters, and they do all these different things, and they have all these supplies and clothing, and they trap and kill animals, and they live out there and they fish, and they're providing for themselves. But what's interesting is when I've watched this show over a period of time, they get to a point in their journey here where they tap out, not because they don't have food or not because they're not able to provide for themselves, but because they miss human contact. It compromises them physically. It compromises them mentally. We were designed. We is always better than me. Ecclesiastes says it this way in chapter 4, verse 9 and 10. And you hear this, we always hear this scripture read at weddings. Like every time I do a wedding, they're like, oh, can you read this scripture? Here it is. 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help, but someone who falls alone is in real trouble. This is the original version of Life Alert. Help, I've fallen and I can't get up. Ecclesiastes 4:10, that's where it came from. 2 people are better than one, for they cannot help each other succeed. If one person falls, I can't get up, help. The other can reach out and help, but someone who falls alone is in real trouble. And some of you are trying to walk through this life and this journey as a follower of Jesus Christ. You want to know what's next? You need community. You need somebody in your life. Because we is always, always better than just me. Galatians, Paul, in his letter to the Galatians in chapter 5, said it this way. For you have been called to live in freedom, my brothers and sisters, but don't use the freedom to satisfy your sinful nature. Instead, use your freedom to serve one another in love. For the whole law can be summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Like it or not, we have an inherent need to love and be loved by people. We all have an issue that we struggle with, and I shared with the band this morning. I was listening to a podcast this week, and it was this guy telling a story about how he got in an argument with his wife. And then the devil got on his shoulder, and he started remembering, oh, I used to date this homecoming queen, and blah, 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 and I heard that she just lived in this. And so he got on his bike, and he started riding to this old girlfriend's house to pay her a visit. Because he'd gotten sideways with his wife, he'd gotten crossways with her, and he moved, and then so he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back, I'm going to get on my bike, and I'm going to ride and see my old girlfriend and just see what she's up to. Because that's the way Satan works in our life. And then he stopped, and he'd had a relationship with a friend that loved him like nobody else. And so he's like, you know what I need to do? I need to pick up my phone, and I need to call my buddy. And he picked up his phone, and he's like, hey, yeah, man, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I know, I'm going to get over there, yeah. Hey, listen, I need to tell you something. This is what I was about to do. And his friend said, I'll be right over. Because you see, we all have this thing in our life We all have issues in our life that we want to hide, that we want to keep secret, that we're embarrassed by, those urges, those temptations, the things that we're tempted to do. And when we don't have community, when we don't have somebody to help us up, we're going to fall. And the fact of the matter is, the thing about community and the thing about that having a relationship like that is trust. You have to have someone in your life that you trust to be able to make that phone call and know that they're not going to run screaming in the other direction. Some may be thinking, you know what, Trent, I don't need that. I can do this by myself. Trust me, you can't. I can overcome this issue on my own. I don't need to tell anybody about it. I really don't like people. I've had some people tell me that. Sadly enough, I've heard pastors say that. I like being by myself. I love being lonely. Look, I like spending some time alone too, but you need somebody because we is always better than me. Second point this morning is you need a crew. Not a crowd. Not just any crew. You need a crew and not a crowd. Jesus didn't come to create a crowd. There were crowds that followed Jesus, and he walked around, and people followed him, and there was these giant crowds, and he, fed the 5,000, and he was around a lot of people all the time. But you know what he did when he started his ministry? He picked 12 guys. 12 guys. He picked 12 outsiders, a bunch of nobodies. Jesus didn't create a crowd, he created a crew. And he needed a crew. The relationships or friends that we surround ourselves will determine the kind of follower you are. Proverbs 13:20 says, "Walk with the wise, become wise. For a companion of fools suffer harms." In other words, if you hang around people that are passionate, hardworking, faith-filled, they're positive, they're upbeat, you're going to be the same way. If you are surrounding yourself with people that are negative, they always are complaining, they're always griping, they're always belly aching over something, they're lazy, they're critical, they're self-centered, guess what? You're going to be the same way. Show me your friends, and I will show you your future. The people that you are surrounding yourself around with every day will determine the path for your life. The people that you are doing community with will shape and mold who you are as a follower of Jesus Christ. Hebrews 10:24 says, "Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now in the day of his return is drawing near." Sometimes we feel ourselves, and this just happens, I know this is life. Sometimes we just feel ourselves pulling away from healthy relationships. I don't think you wake up some morning and say, well, you know what? I'm tired of hanging out with those people. I'm just going to hang out with these people. I don't think it's something that you just automatically do. I think it's something that it's a slow fade and it's a drift. And you find yourself drifting away from people who challenge you because maybe they tell you exactly the things that you need to hear that you don't want to hear. And it makes you angry and you're like, well, I'm done with them. But because they're putting their finger on something that I know is true in my life and that I need to fix, but I don't really want to hear that. And so what happens is we drift and we find ourselves pulling away from positive relationships and we find ourselves in negative situations that destroy our walk. We find ourselves pulling away from accountable, encouraging relationships with other believers. You know why? Because those types of relationships take work, and it's hard, and it's awkward, and it's uncomfortable, and it's stressful. But those are the types of relationships you need. Jesus created a crew of people that he did life with, that they held each other accountable. If you're running from healthy relationships or resisting getting involved in them, you will continue to be bounced around by sin and you will experience zero growth in your life. That's my last point. So you need a crew. We is better than me. You need a crew, not a crowd. The third thing is intimacy with God and intimacy with each other. In other words, you are one community. Pay attention. This is, if you hear nothing else I say this morning, I don't know where you are in your spiritual walk with Christ this morning, but I do know this. You are just one community, one right community away from changing your destiny. You are one community away from changing your destiny. Either with people who are followers and passionate followers of Jesus Christ, or it's with people who are not. You know, there are 4 types of, we go to extremes. This is interesting. As a human race, we strive for perfection, knowing really that none of us are perfect. And we go to extremes to create and protect this fake version of ourselves that we present to the world, that we present here on Sunday morning. Chances are you ran into people and you said, "Hey, how are you?" And their answer was, "Oh, man, we're good." Some of you are doing that today. You're protecting this fake version of yourself, and you're presenting it to the rest of us here today. We all do it. Some of you do that constantly. We buy houses and cars that we can't afford. We suffer through our jobs to pay our bills. We keep secrets. We lack valuable, meaningful, deep, connected relationships. There are 4 types of relationships that you have in your life, whether you know it or not. The first one is this, a public relationship. That's like, hey, connections that you have. Just out of curiosity, you guys have your phones on you? Get out your phone if you have your phone and look at your Facebook account really quick. Just do it. Come on. I know you all got them. I hear them ring all the time. How many friends do you have on Facebook? If you have a Facebook account. Just show of hands. Anybody have more than 1,000? Yes, I see that hand. Yes, I see that hand. All over this place, hands. Sorry, I couldn't resist. You may have more than 2,000 friends on Facebook. Come on. Yeah, you know who you are. I looked this week, I have 2,390 friends on Facebook. I know about 3 of them. Those are our public. They're connections through outside influences. They're just public relationships. You don't really have any kind of deep, meaningful relationship. Then you have social. These are first impression relationships. These are kind of what we have with each other here on Sunday morning. Social relationship. First impression relationships based on surface level interactions. It's all just very surface level. Hey, how are you? I'm great. How are you? Good, good. How's job going? Great. Love it. Yeah, kids are great. We love it. See you later. See you next week. That's what we have predominantly here on Sunday morning, if we're honest. You have a social relationship. Most of us sitting right here, people we go to church with. Then you have personal relationships. These are closer connections that are, now hear this, these are closer connections that are formed through shared activity. You do an activity together, and then because of that activity, you have this closer, kind of a personal relationship with these people. It's the baseball moms, okay, that sit on the sidelines. It's the soccer moms. It's the dads who are golfing together on Thursdays or are playing disc golf in the park. We have 22 people playing disc golf now, and I got to get some discs. I feel pressured. Those are personal relationships that are connected through forged through shared experiences. You have things in common, so you're running into these people all the time, and you have these personal relationships. And then you have intimate relationships. These are the relationships that are real and are raw. They're your innermost circle. These are the people that know everything. These are the people that know who you are. Really who you are. These are the people that know all the dirt. These are the people that have seen you ugly cry. They know your secrets. These are the people that have refrigerator rights You don't know what refrigerator rights is when I walk in your house and I open the refrigerator and make a sandwich. Those are intimate friends. And here's the sad thing. Although we crave, honestly, some of you are thinking, man, I'm not sure I have anybody like that in my life. And although we crave intimacy, we fear it because we don't trust it. Some of us even lack the trust to believe in God, let alone somebody in this room. If you're honest, isn't there something deep down in you this morning that wishes you could be truly known? Isn't there something in your heart right now that would say, I wish there was somebody. I wish I had someone who really knew me, that I could tell all of the crazy thoughts that bounce in my head, that I could just share. It's because we all have this desire to be truly known and truly loved. To know that someone knows all of the ugly and doesn't run in the other direction. To know that all of your skeletons are out of the closet and there are people who love you and accept you because God does. And He created us flawed for a reason. Did you know that? That we all have some kind of issue, that we all have some kind of flaw, that we all have some kind of temptation or some kind of weak point that Satan knows about, that he pushes his finger on, and every time we fall on our face. Did you know that? And here's why I was listening to a podcast this week, and here's why we created that, is because until you have a relationship where you can be completely vulnerable and you can share that kind of information with someone, you will not truly be loved by other people. Because what that does is when you say to someone, hey, here's this huge thing that I am going to trust you with. You, of all of the people in the earth, of all of the people in my 2,390 friends that I have on Facebook, you are the person that I want to share this with. You are the person that I'm going to trust you with. And then what feels awesome is when that person says, thank you for trusting me with that. Yes, let's pray about it. I'm going to pick you up. That's what community should feel like. And we are one community away. You are one community away from changing your destiny. God created us. We become most like Jesus in that moment. You don't have to raise your hands and don't answer this out loud. But on a scale of 1 to 10 in this room, how connected do you feel with the people that are sitting here? 0, meaning not at all? Or 10 going, yeah, I feel really, really connected with all these people? Is it 5 to 10? And the thing is, some of us probably feel more connected to each other than some do. But I think that some of us are living in poverty. And there are 3 types of poverty. There's material poverty. We know what that is, right? There's spiritual poverty when you don't have a relationship with Christ. But I think there's relational poverty. And I think some of us are living in relational poverty. We do not have people in our lives that are walking with us on this journey of being a follower of Jesus Christ. And I think there's a lot of causes to relational poverty. There's we have air conditioning so we don't go outside, and we have garage doors that we pull in and shut the door behind us and never see our neighbors, and we do all of our shopping online, and for crying out loud, I can pick my groceries up at Walmart without ever having to go in there and see any of you. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm just kidding. We have caller ID, and we can screen our calls and cell phones that we know who's calling us, and creates this. And we have social media that creates a deferred loneliness in our life. And so this morning in closing, here's what I want you to do with all this. I talk about the first century church a lot, and the church that formed after the resurrection of Jesus says this. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to the breaking of bread and prayer. Everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and signs were performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions and give it to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. And my dream church, in closing, I've shared this before, my dream church would be a church that we could come in and be brutally honest. Hey, how are you doing? Well, I'm terrible. Let me tell you, I failed miserably this week. You know, I watched this and did that and said that and flipped this guy off, and it was not a good week for me, you know. That's what I would really like. Wouldn't it be fun to be part of a church like that if we were all just brutally honest like that? But the fact of the matter is, I'm confident that we will never achieve that on Sunday mornings. I'm confident. As much as I would love to have that, I'm confident that not any of you are going to come in here and throw all your skeletons, and probably we don't want you to. There's a place for that, okay? It's called a grow group. It's called a community group. It's called a life group. Call it whatever you want. Jesus didn't create a crowd. He created a crew. And he surrounded himself with 12 people that he was intimate with. And he created a community of friends. And you are one community away from changing your destiny. So my challenge to every one of you, I don't care if you've been to church and you've never been a grow group, and every year we push, every year, Trent, you push us into grow groups. Let me tell you something. Grow groups are awkward. Woo! First night of a grow group, horrible. Just awful. It's miserable. Hey, how are you? Well, I'm good. That's because everybody's surface. Nobody really trusts anybody, if we're honest, you know. But the more you do life with those people and the more you walk with that grow group, you begin to sharpen each other, and you begin to know that, hey, this is somebody who actually cares for me and loves me and wants to do life with me. And we build community, and we start building these little grow groups in these little communities. Engage in a grow group. That's my challenge for you this week. You have these little things that are on your chairs this week. Find a grow group. Find a relational group. Find somebody that, it doesn't have to be a grow group where you sit down and study the Bible. I know some of you are like, well, I don't want to go to a grow group because I'm going to be the only idiot in the room that doesn't know anything, and I don't want to be that guy. Go play disc golf with a bunch of guys out here on Thursday night. Find an activity group. Go to Starting Point. If you're wondering where to, come to my house. We'll hang out. I'll show you Ricky. He's all alone. He needs a grow group too. Go do something together. Get a bunch of your girlfriends together and bake something, and then bring it by my house. Cook dinner. Bring that by too. Just have a shared activity with somebody. And I tell you,